Samson's Well, written and read by Claudette Evans. I often pay the ruined castle a visit, when the now arthritic joints allow. It began as a Motte and Bailey fort, erected soon after the Norman invasion, on open land near the river, along an important travel route between South Wales and England, high above a tributary, in a remote rural region. The nearest village, where Gareth and I were born just after World War II, being just over 2 miles southeast. 6 months younger than me, Gareth was my best friend. We did everything together, went to school together, and created mischief together. Where I led, he followed. 60 years ago, we two boys were young and devil-may-care, with no fear of things that go bump in the night. We'd sit cross-legged, with eyes wide open and bated breath, listening to Gramps' tales of ghosts and ghouls, requesting he repeat the legend of Samson's Well. Well, I ask you, what pre-adolescent boy doesn't dream of the chance to gain the strength of Samson? The tale handed down from father to son for countless generations. All you have to do, boys, is climb to the bottom of the well, informed Gramps, and immerse your body fully in the water. Then, accompanied by much face-pulling and zombie-like moans, he added, then, up from the depths of the unknown waters come the giant rats with blood-red eyes. Gramps' wobbling belly disclosed restraining laughter. You'll give the lads nightmares, our mam cautioned, saying the castle was unsafe and we were not to go anywhere near it. Mother had just laid down the gauntlet, a challenge without a doubt. I chose what promised to be a bright moonlit night for our adventure, and wrapping a slice of bread and chunk of cheese in my less than pristine hanky, I crept from the cottage, meeting Gareth as arranged. Dressed as though we were heading for school, we cycled along the unmarked country lane, a coil of strong rope encircled about each of our scrawny bodies, our knees already blue from the chilly night air. It would be another year before the headmaster would allow us to wear long trousers. Standing our bikes at the entrance to Longacre Wood, we removed our cycle lamps, the moon having deserted us. Scurrying along the rough path through Lower Monnow Farm, the wet moss denying us sure footing as we made our way up the hill towards the castle's once water-filled moat. Although in ruins by the start of the 16th century, the oval wall towering above us, supported by 6 towers, remained impressive. Come on, I cried, taking the lead, advancing towards the wooden drawbridge and across its rotting timbers to enter the ruined gatehouse, the upper floor of which was still intact. Once inside, the moon appeared to rise from behind the clouds, like a theatre spotlight, sweeping to reveal the remains of the once grand hall, sleeping quarters and chapel to the east, and kitchen and brewhouse to the west. I was glad we'd remembered our lamps, as a black cloud extinguished the moon, for somewhere in between those lichen-covered rocks lay the goal of our visit, Samson's Well. What was that? Asked Gareth, spinning around. I could feel the hairs on the nape of my neck rising, suppressing my own nervousness with a silly laugh as I added, just a knocking of your knobbly knees. What was that? He whined, his face ashen against the darkening sky. Just bats, I said, flapping my arms up and down and distorting my voice in what I imagined a vampire would sound like, added, Vampire bats from your belfry. Gareth spun around and punched me on my arm, so I returned with one much heavier. What was that for? He yelped. Just because. I was about to make another wisecrack when sounds of fluttering and flapping filled the air. Slowly the moon escaped the thick black cloud to reveal we'd disturbed the bats which roosted in the ruins, clearly seeing their black bodies silhouetted against the grey night sky. Their chattering lost in the wind whistling through the ruins, and my straining to hear their magic clicks. I lost my footing. Realising I must have stumbled against the stone wall that surrounded the well, raising myself up, I shouted, "Here it is!" "Looks like someone's been here before," said Gareth, examining the structure, his voice morphing into a high-pitched whisper, the ancient iron grille sitting halfway across, looking as though someone had already tried to dislodge it. "They knew we were coming," I replied, mimicking Gramps' groans and moans, putting on a show of bravado, even though butterflies were dancing a fandango in my stomach. Placing his lamp on the edge, Gareth grabbed the grill with both hands and, groaning as he strained, made a futile attempt to shift it. "Here, let me try," I said, pushing him to one side and placing my lamp beside his, seized the rustic grating and with a couple of heaves pushed it to one side. In doing so, my precious bundle of bread and cheese slid from my pocket and disappeared into the darkness below. Uncoiling the ropes, we secured one of the ends firmly to the iron grill. "It'll be you that'll go down there then," I said, seeing I would not fit through the gap left between the grill and wall. "Don't we need to see how deep it is first?" he asked. I tugged free a loose stone, dropping it into the black hole. In the distance, the increasing rumbles of thunder announced the storm's imminent arrival, growling like a bear waking hungry from a winter's sleep, left us unable to be 100% certain the rock had reached its goal. Following a moment's deliberation, we decided the last grumble had masked the splash and agreed to use both lengths of rope. "Just to be on the safe side," I said. Gareth nodded in agreement, and securing the lengths together, we threw the heavy coil into the well, now confident it would be more than enough to reach the bottom, and as we did, a flash of lightning lit the blackened sky, followed by a menacing silence, the bats deserting us before the ensuing boom. A mixture of adrenaline and fear raced through my veins as I helped him over the side, and with a lamp stuffed in his trouser pocket, his earlier anxieties having vanished, he began the descent. "It stinks down here," he shouted. Illuminating Gareth with my lamp, clambering down, surrounded by the gloom of the dripping masonry, I shouted, "Don't forget to retrieve my supper." "I can't see the bottom," he replied, as the clouds began marching across an increasingly angry sky. It was taking far longer than we'd anticipated for Gareth to reach the bottom, the air suddenly still, signalling the storm had not yet finished with us. "I've reached the end of the rope, and there's at least another," he yelled, the words receding off the echoing void. The next thing I heard was a large splash, which I took to be him jumping into the water beneath. Trying to sound positive, I yelled into the dark nothingness, "Don't worry!" the words ricocheting back to me. Was I trying to reassure him or convince myself, adding Gramps' promise of a superhuman strength? A resonating quiet quickly replaced the echo that was offering me an invitation to join him, and I found myself screaming his name. Silence. Gareth! I yelled again, my voice shrill as it resonated off the ancient stones. My blood frozen, fearing he may have drowned. Then I heard splashing, lots of splashing, followed by his frantic cry for help. "Thomas, help me! Thomas, please!" he screeched repeatedly, his desperate plea reverberating around and around, loud and soft, the words merging into a cacophony of sound accompanied by relentless splashing, trailed by a period of unsettling calm. In the prolonged hush, I shouted back, "Come on, Gareth! Stop messing about!" waving my light around the walls in a futile attempt to see something, anything. Now, I'm not fearful of heights or falling or spiders or any creepy crawlies. However, I felt the cold finger of terror tearing at my very soul when he finally responded. "Thomas, they're all over me!" he yelled. Leaning over as far as I dare, I shouted, "What's all over you?" Another blood-curdling scream echoed from below, and the splashing resumed, ever more frantic, and for a moment I thought my heart would burst through my chest. I tried to make light of the situation, saying, "Look, if we're not back before either of our fathers wake, we'll be in the doghouse for so long, we'll have to get the post office to redirect our mail." Then I laughed. The kind that lets the world know you're scared shitless. "There's hundreds of them," he shrieked. "Red eyes, hundreds of red eyes, for God's sake, help me!" Silence. I grabbed the rope, intent on climbing down to rescue Gareth, but the extended stillness froze me to the spot. What use would I be? Then the storm hit. Within seconds, the heavy drops became a well of water, drenching me to the skin and extinguishing my lamp. I sat on the well's edge for what seemed an eternity, peering into the abyss, watching the waterfall of rain, listening, hoping for some sign that Gareth had survived, telling myself, persuading myself, that he'd unearthed a secret passage to the outer walls, like they'd had for priests who escaped during the Catholic persecutions. I spent the rest of the night searching the ruins and circling the moat, hoping for signs of a hidden entrance, all the time shouting his name until I was hoarse. Somewhere a cockerel crowed, heralding the dawn, as a silvery mist enveloped the surrounding hills, and I began to run. It was light by the time I reached home. The police arrived and asked me lots of questions. Both his father and mine shouted a lot. The majority directed at me. Gareth's father organised a search party. Both his mother and mine cried a lot. And until the day she died, Mrs. Jenkins never looked me in the eye again. Ma banished Gramps from the house for a while, and villagers crossed the street to avoid me, blaming me for Gareth's death, even though they'd never found a body. And as soon as I was able, I left the village. The landowner encircled the castle with a barbed wire fence and erected a big hand-painted signs with "Danger" and "Keep Out" written in large letters. Once the blacksmith had sealed the grille with heavy bolts. Years later, Cadu took over the maintenance of the castle, placing a block of concrete 2 meters from the top for visitors to toss coins in, designating it to be a wishing well. Standing there, I picture Gareth in the depths below, eyes wide with horror, his mouth taut with fear. I hear the panic in his voice, his arms thrashing about, desperate to fend off the creatures attacking him, hands grasping at the dark, empty space above him. The castle's easy to get to if you know where to find it. I suggest you go in daylight, for after dark, when the moon is full, locals claim they've seen a boy chased by 1,000 giant red-eyed rats. You have been warned. And admission's free.